Good evening, race fans. Welcome to another edition of Motorsports Magazine, this time with Airborne Dark for the month of September. Our venue, Thunder Road over in Barrie, Vermont, our first visit to the track this year. And with the new paving, a beautiful facility, we expect a lot of action when you see the highlights of the racing a little bit later here tonight. Now, we are here on Milk Bowl Sunday, but this is a two-day event. There were some races run yesterday. We could probably cover those a little bit later. A lot of action, some surprises, but we are here for the big one, the Milk Bowl. Of course, we cannot show you any ACT racing, but we can give you some highlights. Right now, I'll bring in my colleague, Rob Knowles, and we should hopefully be able to show you some highlights of late models, Flying Tigers, and street stocks, and some cars that you have never seen before, I assure you, but we're not sure if we're going to show those yet. Rob?
Steve, we still have to, we've been here for quite a while, and when we arrived, they were busy holding pit meetings, and a lot of the track management, of course, involved with those pit meetings. So we are still waiting as to whether or not we will be able to bring you highlights from the late model Sportsman, Flying Tigers, and the street stocks, the regular divisions that you see on a weekly basis at Airborne. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to bring you highlights from those three divisions. If we are able to do so, there's a good field of cars on hand in all three divisions. And as Steve mentioned, a lot of the drivers that you hopefully will be seeing later on in the program, drivers that you're not very familiar with. A lot of names that are very synonymous here with Thunder Road that do not venture over to Airborne, and a lot of strong runners over here, Steve Hayes, that we're not too well aware of.
Yeah, when you see some of the familiar faces from Airborne, they may not run as strong as you may think here. The one exception is going to be, of course, Eric Williams, who leads the points in the Flying Tiger division at both facilities. But some of the guys at Airborne that are strong will have their trouble here at the short quarter-mile speed-banked oval.
In the Flying Tiger division, you mentioned Eric Williams. He is the point leader. He's one of the regular runners over at Airborne, as is Jimmy Young, who's also in the pits. Mike Bushy is in the pits. A couple of regulars from the New York side of things made their way over as well, Steve Hayes.
Yeah, a couple of Flying Tigers in particular. I was a little surprised to see in the pits. Moon Miller here, Toby Ebersol, they're pitted side-by-side. And a couple of our leading street stock guys side-by-side, the 29 of Brian Pugh and the 77 of Rick Frenier, where hopefully we'll be able to show you how they do a little bit later on.
Also in the pits from Plattsburgh, a couple of other street stock drivers. Jim Varno's in the pits, Skip Liberty's in the pits, and I believe the 81 of
Bob Wells.
Bob Wells is in the pitch. Thank you. You call the street stocks every week. We were talking about that on the way over. Some of the street stock drivers' names I'm still not too sure of. So there are some drivers here from the New York side of things. In the late model Sportsman, we do not have any New York drivers in the pit. So unfortunately, you will not be seeing any of the New York drivers from the Airborne racetrack here at Thunder Road this afternoon. But strong field in the pits for the late models.
Yeah, some really good cars too. The guys who have really grown up racing here at Thunder Road really know their way around this place, and since it was paved this year have found a lot of extra speed. And there have been some problems this year. This track has been known to have its share of difficulties as far as rollovers. There's been 7 or 8 automobiles that have ended up on their top this season. And yesterday, as we understand, Rob, when we came in we were told about it, a pretty scary incident. The number 90 tour car of Martin Roy Jr. went off of the turn 1-2 embankment and landed on top of the Jason Gibbs vehicle, not the car, the truck that tows it. The front of that truck is not in good shape, Rob.
Steve, we hope that, again, we will be able to bring highlights, but also we're looking to talk to some of these drivers. Let's mention some of them by name who I'm sure many of the fans on our cable systems have heard of before, but perhaps have not seen because they do not venture over to Airborne. First of all, we'll start with the late model Sportsman division. Who are some of the drivers that not necessarily are at Airborne every week, but definitely are here every week and are at the top of the points?
Well, let's take the top 3 in the point standings as we start this week. And Chuck Beatty is leading the points, a defending champion at this place. And I'll tell you what, he is a very strong runner. He was at Airborne for the regional divisions. A former Airborne regular, Jim Silly, is right behind him by about 8 points or so. And so Jim Silly, we know, is a master out there, and he can certainly give Beatty all he can handle. But the guy third in points is leading over at Airborne, Dave Whitcomb. And we know that Whitcomb, just from running at Airborne, is a guy who he's had his share of problems. But if that car is hooked up, he can really get to the front in a hurry. And we should mention Whitcomb is one of those cars that has had a rollover. Earlier this year, he rolled the car off of the backstretch, demolished, they said, the underside of that automobile. His crew fixed it. He went out and finished second or third in the main event.
About a couple of other names in that late model Sportsman division. I know Joey LeCaire is synonymous. The LeCaire family's been racing here at Thunder Road for a long period of time. How about some of the other names that are top 20 or top 10 that we might have heard of before?
Well, I know everyone remembers the white number 2 of Norm Andrews. He's a regular here at Thunder Road. Berger Blake, who had a win just a couple of weeks ago. He has a beautiful number 27. Hopefully he'll get to see it a little bit later. Monty Lemaire, who showed up last week. First time for that guy at Airborne. He runs here pretty regularly. Matter of fact, Monty's 13th in points, so he's been here pretty much all season. Dave Gibbs, who's been at Airborne the last couple of weeks, he runs here all the time. And how about Stacy Cahoon? We don't mention him a lot, but you may remember Cahoon made the regional shows. First time out, probably wasn't as good as you might hope, but he has really got that car hooked up. And the 83 machine is a quick automobile as well.
A couple other drivers that come to mind, Lance Furno in the 31, and Pat Corbett, who, if you remember, won the second regional race at the Airborne 100-lap victory, and he was pretty dominant in car number 5.
Yeah, he really, I mean, he started up front, he finished up front, he never was out of the front the whole race, but he was a very exhausted driver at the end of that race, you might remember. Pretty much collapsed on the track, needed a little oxygen. He was fine. I think they waved the money in front of him, and that pretty much brought him back to life. A couple other guys, though, you better remember. How about the 45 of Brian Hort? Saw Brian, as a matter of fact, a few minutes ago, and he's in a pretty good mood. Hopefully that will continue throughout the day, as maybe he'll have a good run. And let's never forget the Kentucky Colonel, the 77 of Tom Tiller. Anytime Tiller's out there, you know something's probably going to happen. He's a pretty good driver out there, a lot of years of experience.
Okay, rattle off some names for us in the Flying Tiger division. Some names that we've probably heard of, but never seen before.
Well, you know, over at Airborne, Eric Williams has a 60-point lead over Jason Leo. But here at Thunder Road, he may lead, but it's not as quite as far. He has a 7-point lead over the 32 of Ricky Dennis, and I have been praising Ricky Dennis all year. That Emerald City Bedroom machine is a very fast automobile. I expect that Dennis and Williams will probably do a lot of battling throughout the course of today. Other guys you always have to keep an eye on. How about the Yellow Zero Mark Barnier? He has been dominant wherever he goes. He's won at Airborne, he's won at Thunder Road, and he's won at Riverside. Not many drivers can say that this year. Other guys you may want to remember, Robbie Benjamin. You don't know the name. He's really getting to be a pretty strong driver out there. He's had a lot of success already this year. Rosaire Sear drives the number 60. He's only been at Airborne a couple of times, but when that car is hooked up, another driver who can get to the front, and when he gets to the front, very difficult driver to pass. He's really very good at holding a lead. And a couple other guys, Jeff Wimble, a familiar name with the Tour, as he has some famous parents who work as officials in the Tour. And let's not forget Doug Murphy, who has been at Airborne a couple of times. And there's a guy who you don't hear a lot about, but you know, he can always pull off a win.
5 street stock drivers in the pits from the other side of Lake Champlain, of course, the New York side from Lake Champlain. How about some of the other names who we'll be hearing, hopefully, later on in the program in the street stocks?
Well, the top 3 in street stocks are guys that all have some familiarity with Airborne. The guy leading the points at 23 of Joe Becker, who started out the season at Airborne, skipped a few weeks, and came back a couple of times. He has a very narrow 9-point lead over the 97 of Jason Gibbs. And remember what I told you, Jason has some problems with his tow vehicle. He got rolled on by the 90 Tour car. Third in the points is the 3 of Dennis Griffin. Now, this is a machine. It's a Dale Earnhardt lookalike street stock. He has a huge hauler. Matter of fact, Rob and I, first time he pulled in, said, well, what car is this? We saw a little street stock pull out. We were kind of surprised. A lot of envious drivers. They'd like that hauler. Dennis has 1 win at Airborne, and then he disappeared. He hasn't been back since. I don't know why. He's a good driver. He's doing very well here. He's 3rd in points.
Maybe he figures he's conquered the track. Why go back when you conquer the track? I'm a poet. All right, so coming up on the program, we're going to get some of these drivers, have some interviews, hopefully be able to talk to drivers from any of the several divisions who are here, including the American Canadian Tour. And again, we'll let you know in regards to the highlights and what's going to happen with that. Also, a programming note coming up next Thursday night on many of these same local public access networks. We'll have highlights from the International Super Modified Association 75-lap Classic held at the Lee USA Speedway, as well as the Pro Stocks, which run regularly down at the Lee Speedway. So, Steve, we're set for an interesting afternoon here at Thunder Road, and final impressions as we head into the day.
Well, whenever you come to Thunder Road for a Milk Bowl, you know something unusual is going to happen, because the format of the Milk Bowl, you start up front, and if you win, you go to the back of the pack. And at Thunder Road, a quarter mile, the segments are only 50 laps. It's very difficult to move from the back of the pack to the front. As far as the support divisions, they've been running here all year long. Those guys know the setup. They know what they have to do, but there is a catch. You see, they're gotten used to Thursday night racing. We're racing on a Sunday afternoon, and it's a little chilly here, but it's probably not quite as cold as these guys may be used to on some nights. So they're going to probably use the practice session just to get those cars dialed in. But when they get them dialed in, this is a very quick facility, and we've told you all year, you get to the outside, you're in trouble. Hopefully you'll get to see some of that today.
All right, stay with us. Coming up, interviews and hopefully highlights from Milk Bowl Sunday at the Thunder Road International Speed Bowl in Barrie, Vermont. Rob Knowles, Steve Hayes, you're watching Motorsports Magazine from Thunder Road.
Joining me right now, Motorsports Magazine. Every time the ACT runs, you have to keep an eye on the blue 92 machine. And this is the driver from Petrolia, Ontario, Dave Whitlock. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, let's explain to the fans exactly how far you travel, because Petrolia, Ontario is not just in the backyard.
No, we kind of get the long trip award every weekend. We're from Petrolia, Ontario, which is just about an hour this side of Detroit.
And of course, at least he doesn't go to Nova Scotia anymore, but there were some tracks on the schedule originally were right in your backyard. It would have been nice to drive those places.
Yeah, we missed our Ontario races this year. They were nice and close, and it was nice to have a couple close races. But this year's been it's been a good year, anyways. The competition's been really good on the tour, and we've been glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I was going to mention the competition this year because you cannot go to any of these tracks and say, well, this is the guy who's obviously going to win it. Each and every time out of the box, there's 6, 7 automobiles that appear that they could win it, and any one of you guys make a mistake, and they're all getting right by you.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's still 10, 12 real competitive cars every weekend, and it's been a real good year, competitive and everything.
Well, I know you just didn't jump right into the ACT. I know you raced CASCAR for a while, which is a pretty nice division up in Canada as well. And how much does CASCAR transfer to help with the tour?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Well, I mentioned that you raced CASCAR for a while, and I was saying, how much does CASCAR help you when going into the ACT, similar type automobiles?
Okay, yeah, it was quite a bit of help because we ran some longer races, like 200 lap races, 150 lap races, and that was good for like the long race strategy and stuff like that. The cars don't have quite as much horsepower, and they're not as state-of-the-art of a car, but the experience was definitely helpful.
Well, of course, today is an unusual event because you only have 150 laps, but we divide it into 3 50-lap segments, and it's great if you win one, you only get 1 point, but it means you're going to start at the back of the next time out, and with 50 laps, that's not a lot of time in a quarter mile to get to the front.
No, it's sure not. It's a really interesting layout here at the Milk Bowl. It makes for an interesting race and exciting for the fans, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. We hope to keep the quality Thunderbird up front there.
Well, you raced on a lot of tracks, you mentioned that. Now, this is one of the shortest tracks you ever see, a quarter mile. Would you like to have a little bit more distance like at Airborne or when you got to Sonera a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, it's nice to run on the big tracks, but the Thunder Road's always been a favorite of mine. We usually run pretty good here, and we're looking forward to today.
Well, they paved it this year, and I've been asking everyone who drove on it before the same question. You're with the tour, and you guys go quicker than anybody. Now they got the new pavement down. It's really fast out there.
Yeah, it sure is. It's a fast little place, and if you're not right on top of things, you can get in trouble in a hurry.
Well, the other problem is here with the outside groove, it doesn't seem to be one, really. You get stuck on the outside, of course, everybody goes under you to the underneath. There's not a whole lot you can do, and with 50 laps a segment, you have to think about going to the outside if you get stuck behind slow cars.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to be able to run on the outside here if you're going to get to the front, and our car usually goes pretty good on the outside.
I want to thank my guest for joining me. He drives the Motorcraft number 92 ACT automobile. He hauls all the way from Petrolia, Ontario. If nothing else, take your hats off to this guy for just making the trip each and every week, because I know some of those races in Maine, like Beechridge and Unity, that's a haul.
Yeah, it sure is. Thanks a lot for your time.
Dave Whitlock, ladies and gentlemen. Keep an eye on the 92. You know, he'll be at the Fall Foliage in a couple of weeks. Definitely a car to watch. Joining me right now on MSM, our defending late model sportsman champion from '93, the 36 machine is Scott Carpenter. He sits third going in today. Well, Scott, pretty good year overall.
Yeah, not too bad. We came back this year, tried to defend the title, and you know, we lost a couple of motors and got wrecked a couple times. Didn't make all the races, but you know, we're pretty happy, really, considering everything that's happened. To be right up there. We're still going to call it a good year.
Yeah, I know they're going to make an announcement here at some point during the course of this day about what the plans for the regional are next year. But I know you probably plan to be here next year, maybe run Thunder Road, some regionals.
Yeah, we hope to be able to come back over here. We really enjoy it. You know, if we can find some sponsors to run over here, it's what we really want to do, and you know, maybe the regional too.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is a guy though that likes those extra distance races. You bring those 100-lap races to Airborne, and this guy always seems to get to the front. A little knack for that, huh?
Yeah, well, it gives you, you know, you got plenty of time in a 100-lapper, and you know, some people just try to get right to the front, and you know, you gotta be there in the end. And you know, we had pretty good luck in them over here. We won the first one, and you know, I like the longer distance. Gives you more time, cleaner racing.
All right, well, thank you for joining me. We're going to catch a few more of his competitors here. Driving the 36, hope to see him back next year, Scott Carpenter. Thanks for joining me, Scott.
Thank you.
My guest right now, one of our leading late model sportsman contenders. This guy won just about everything he could when he ran in the division under this. Jumped up here with the late model guys. He's had some pretty good races out there. Steve Renadet.
Hi.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, you have had some good times out there. You've had some wins and you've had some great runs. What's a couple of the biggest differences, though, between this division and what are now the Flying Tigers?
The big difference there is, I mean, you've got to be more careful. I mean, they do a little bit of bumping, where if we bump a little bit, you're going to find you're going to either have a flat tire or you're going to push the suspension back. So it's going to knock the car out enough so you can't finish competing in a race. So you've got to be careful there. That's one big thing I noticed going from one division to the other. You can't do as much bumping and grinding as you used to.
Now, what are we going to see from the Renadet racing team in '95? Back here at Airborne?
We're not sure at this point. We're very possible we may be back at Airborne. We're looking at the new track that's going on over in Malone, and we're thinking about maybe even trying some of the ACK racing too, to see if we can get the car up to a pro stock so we can run a few of those too next year.
Yeah, if you join with the ACT, probably want to at least stick with some of the tracks you're familiar with. Maybe come here to Airborne, run at Thunder Road, tracks that you really learned a lot of your skills at.
Oh, definitely, because Airborne is one of my favorites. So I mean, Airborne would be one of the places I would want to come all the time because of my familiarity of this one, and plus also Thunder Road is not too bad, and I've learned to like Groveton pretty well too. Up that way is a pretty good little track.
I like that new paving at Thunder Road this year. Huh? It gets a little quicker.
It's a lot quicker and it's a lot nicer, and you know, you feel like you get a little more control over the car too. But it makes for some good racing also.
All right, well, thank you for joining me. Hoping to see him here every week next year at Airborne and maybe in a few ACT races. Thanks for joining me, Steve.
Thank you.
My guest right now, Motorsports Magazine, you know, we've been saying that like Eric Williams and the Tigers has a chance at 2 track championships. Well, this guy, the driver of the 35 late model sportsman, Ron Weston, well, is the Rookie of the Year at both tracks. He's Rookie of the Year at Thunder Road, and he clinched it here at Airborne a while ago. Hey, pretty good outing for your first year, 2 Rookie of the Years.
Yeah, it's going pretty good. It's going a lot better than I thought it would this year, being 5th in points coming into this race and stuff. It's been a pretty good year at both tracks.
Now, I know you really haven't decided what you're going to do in '95 yet. It makes a big difference what some of the rules are and maybe where the regional shows are, but I know you'd like to get into a couple ACT races in '95.
Yeah, I think I'd like to put my tour car back together and run a few shows next year with the tour, and I may keep this car too. I had it for sale for a while, but depends on what the rules are. I may run this car some in the regionals and then run some of the tour too.
I know a lot of late model guys, even as early as this year, were running some tour races like Gene Paul Sear, Lance Furno. It helps though to get used to the late model, have a few races. The tour car is different, but you can get a lot of experience that you can transfer from the LMS division to the tour.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bonus no matter what you're running for a division. I mean, you got to step your way up, but this is pretty close to the. Well, I say it's pretty close to the tour. The tour's got a lot more power and a lot better handling cars, but there's a lot of knowledge behind it.
You know, I think Ron is glad this is the last week of race. If you look at the side of this car, it is severely dented up to say the least. You've knocked this thing around quite a bit. Yeah,
amazingly, it's held together. The car's dented up sheet metal wise, but the frame has been straight all summer. It hasn't been bent like a lot of the other ones were.
Which that's the most important thing. You can bend cosmetically the sheet metal all you want. It's the roll cage in there that has to stay intact, and that's the one thing that's the most important in these things.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I want to thank him for joining me. Our Rookie of the Year at both Thunder Road and Airborne, and 5th overall in Airborne points going in today. He's going to have a pretty good finish overall for this year. Ron Wesson, thanks again.
Thank you, Steve.
My guest right now is the guy who finished 3rd overall in the points at Thunder Road for the season, 4th in the regional, but he's hoping for a much better finish here in 94 at Airborne. He leads the points coming in the last event. The driver of the 25, Dave Wickham. Well, you've had a pretty good year.
Yeah, it's been a real good year for us. Actually, I've got a really great crew, some good sponsors, and it's been a real nice year racing. Really enjoyed it.
At Thunder Road, I was just talking to him before we started the camera rolling. He has a love-and-hate relationship. He finishes well there, but when he crashes hard. You've been on your top more than once there.
Yeah, a couple times up there. I've had some hard crashes, and then we've come back a couple times and had good finishes afterwards.
Yeah, I know most of the late model guys really love that regional series. You get to go to a couple of tracks, and it's a situation where you get a lot of new competition. And someone who can really dial in a car the way you do, you can do well in that type of racing.
Oh, it's fun. I have a good time going to the other tracks, and I seem to be able to get my car to go pretty good when we get there. I've been lucky doing that, but it's mainly because I got a really good crew and got some good guys helping me.
Well, you got one more race out here, and you got to hold off that Zero Brent Dragon. Now, you got a little cushion going in. You could be behind him by a couple of spots, but you don't want to let him get way in front of you and then start to fall back.
No, I got to really go out there today and pay attention and really try to drive a good race, because I know Brent's going to be right there. He's going to be going good, and I got to at least do the same thing.
All right, 4th in the region, 3rd at Thunder Road, and hopefully 1st here at Airborne after today. My guest, the driver of the 25 late model, Dave Wickham. Good luck today.
Hey, thank you very much.
My guest right now, a weekly competitor here at Airborne each and every Saturday this year from South Hero, Vermont, and he was in victory lane just a few weeks ago. The driver of the 48 machine, Glenn Wright. Welcome to the show again.
Thanks a lot. Nice to see you.
Well, you have had a good year, to say the least. You had that victory. You've been running real strong this year, but 95 a little bit of a mystery because, like most of your competitors, you don't know what they're doing yet.
Yeah, I don't know what, and really don't know what the tour is doing. Don't really know what the late model session's going to be. I think it's going to be some regional events, which I think will be fun. I really would like to race Plattsburgh again, Airborne, on a weekly basis, do some regional racing. We've had a lot of fun here this year, and we had 2 goals coming in. We wanted to finish top 10 in points and win a race, and if we don't goof up too bad today, we ought to be able to get the points, and we've already run the race. So we've had a good year.
Well, he's already won the race. He's 8th overall going in. Actually, you're only 1 point behind Reddit coming in, so you may be able to get past Steve. But I think you pretty much established your goals. You set them, and you met your goals. But like you said, 95, you're going to have to set some new goals because you don't know where you're going to be racing for sure.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a nice program with the regionals. I think the regional events this year worked out real well, and that was the trial. And I think this year next year, 95, we'll see more regional events, 100-lap races, and I think the fans will really enjoy that.
All right, well, thank you for joining me once again, as he did earlier after his victory a few weeks ago. Driver of the 48 late model sportsman from South Hero, Glenn Wright. Good luck today and the rest of the year.
Great, thanks a lot.
My guest right now is a guy who wouldn't have to do a whole lot to win the 94 Track Championship. He's 2nd in points going in by 30 as we start this weekend. Driver of the Mills Body Shop, number 0 late model, Brent Dragon. Well, welcome to the show again, Brent.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Maybe I shouldn't say you won't have to do a lot because you're going to have to finish a few spots in front of Wickham, but you've been a car that's been consistently up near the front all year long. You always seem to finish up near the front.
Yeah, we've always been right in the top 5 there every race, but Dave's right either in front of us or behind us every single week, and that's what's put in there. He's had a hell of a year.
Well, of course, today with Thunder Road shut down, a few guys here that don't normally make the trip, that could play into one of your plans because one of you may have trouble with some of the lap traffic. It may happen.
Yeah, that's probably basically my only hope, and have David have a break and get 15, 20 cars between us, and that would do it. But Dave's just got a pretty easy job. He's just going to go out there and ride today.
Now, 15-20 position definitely would make him the track champ this year. 95, I know most guys aren't quite set as to what they're going to do. They're waiting to see what kind of rules come out. But I know you probably want to do basically what you did this year.
Yeah, we're going to do the same thing, all of Plattsburgh, probably the Malone thing, and a regional deal again. And we'd like to try a few tour races next year.
Of course, the Malone track you're talking about is a brand new facility that's really different. It's more of a D-shaped oval, and that's going to be a little tricky for some of the guys up there the first time.
Yeah, that's going to be. I think it's going to be a couple of things. It's going to be a real handling track, and it's going to be a real power track. You're going to have a good motor, and you're going to have the car hooked up. It's going to be like a road course, really.
And he mentioned that he wants to get into a couple of ACT races, so that means you probably will be running side by side with someone in a 75 that you're familiar with.
Yeah, I like to do that. We had fun racing with him in the sportsman car. I like to try in a tour car. Gene Sears been doing it this year, and he's done a heck of a job. So we're looking forward to trying that too.
I want to thank him for joining me and wishing him the best for his title quest for today for all of 95. Driver of the number 0 late model sportsman, Brent Dragon. Thanks for joining me, Brent.
Thank you. Thanks.
My guest right now, driver of the 63 late model sportsman out of Plattsburgh, New York. Guys had a pretty good season as well here at Airborne in 94. Bucko Branham, welcome to the show, Bucko.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, 94 in about 3 or 4 hours will have concluded, and we're going to have to all look toward 95. And you're one of the guys who are still waiting to see what kind of rules come out and where you'll be for next year.
Yeah, we're really anticipating the rules because the changes that we do make, I think, are going to be pretty critical. And if we can get the sponsorship that we're looking for, I think we'll be one of the cars to beat here next year because we were fast this year. A lot of bad luck.
And he is one of the several guys who are planning perhaps to go to the Malone Speedway and run up there on that brand new facility. And I know that you're really anxious because you really want to go up there and try that place.
Yeah, it's a tri-oval, and the only place that we've ever ran like that is Saint Air, and that's 3 times the size of that track. So it looks like it's going to be a challenging track.
Now, Milk Bowl weekend, I was sitting at Thunder Road, and I was having a pretty good time watching Dave Whitlock win the race. But Bill Fowden and Bucko were someplace else. They were at the Beechridge Motor Speedway, finishing 2nd and 3rd in the Legend cars. Now, that must have been different.
Yeah, we had to run against all the great national guys like Joe Bessie, Andy Santerre. We held our ground pretty good because the only one that beat us was Joe Bessie. So Billy was running strong. I finished behind him, but me and him had our own race going.
So, I mean, all these big names, yeah, okay, Bessie may have won, but let's remember he's got quite a bit of experience under his belt as well. Bill got his 2nd, and Bucko was right on his tail. So, unfortunately, he's not planning to run the Legends next year, but, you know, he's had some experience in him. Hey, hoping the best for you in 95. Hope to see you Malone, Airborne, and any place else you decide to run.
Yeah, I'd like to take time to thank my sponsors, McGee's Auto Sales and Budweiser. They've been real good to us.
All right, Bucko Branham, driving the 63 late model out of Plattsburgh. Thanks again, Bucko.
Thank you.
My guest right now on MSM, driving the 66 late model sportsman out of Plattsburgh, Joe Thomas. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you. Glad to be here for the last race.
Well, there is the last race. 94 in a couple of hours will be done. In 95, everyone's going to start looking forward to it. You're one of the many drivers who aren't quite sure what 95 is going to bring.
No, we're sort of waiting for the new rules to come out. I hear there's not going to be much of a change, but we're going to have a new car next year.
Yeah, a brand new car under him, and hopefully here at Airborne. I know this is a place you'd like to run next year.
Yes, I'd rather run here than the other track.
And if he gets a chance, so I know he probably will go at least once or twice up to that new place in Malone, just to test the waters a little bit, see what it's like up there.
Yeah, I hear they're going to run the same rules that we're running here. They're going to try to get about 5 tracks all running the same class of cars, which will really be good because the local guy will be able to run it his track, and the guy that wants to go to the 100 lappers will be able to travel around a little bit.
Of course, with the regional series, and not only the regionals, but you get a couple of extra races. The extra distance races, that's something you like, maybe going 50 or 100 laps?
I like the long races, even though we've had trouble in the past with them. It gives you a lot better chance when you're starting in the back to get to the front.
All right, well, you probably heard the announcement. The LMS car is getting ready for a practice session. We're going to let him go here. Want to thank him for joining me, wishing him the best for today, and hope to see him a whole lot in 95. Thanks for joining me, Joe.
Thank you.